So thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited to talk to you today about Rotary membership. And anytime you want to talk, just raise your hand. Feel free to interrupt because you won't be interrupting because we're here to learn about membership. And I'm sure that we all will benefit from whatever question that you have. So you don't have to wait to the end. If you have a question in between, just go ahead and let me know what it is, and I'd be glad to answer it. So it's interesting. There's a lot going on in Rotary membership right now around the world, and Rotary International is hard at work studying several different aspects of membership, and it has some new initiatives that are coming to bear soon here, mostly at the beginning of the year, that I think will really help us. Now, if we look at numbers, they're always different, looking from one month to another, but the best numbers to look at are July 1st numbers. And if we look at from year to year, that gives us a good baseline on which to hopefully grow from there, but to know where we're at. Right now, Rotary has about 1.134 million people in it right now, members. And that's about a $19,000 loss, a 19,000 person loss since last year. And our Rotaract's about 115,000, which is a 48,000 member loss, mostly because we started building the Rotaractors, so we got a real sense of what the numbers are now. We have over 36,000 clubs and close to 9,000 Rotaract clubs. And our gender parity is making progress, but we got a way to go. We're at 26% female internationally. But it's interesting because if you look at where we've been and where we've been over the last 10 years, we've been steadily declining over the last 10 years in membership. So the interesting thing is also when we're losing members. We lose about 10% of our members in the first year that they join, and we lose just over 50% of our members in the first 3 years. It seems that after that 3-year period, they're true Rotarians and they don't leave after that. So we have to ask ourselves the question first before we start talking about membership is, why do we want to grow? We always talk about we have to grow Rotary, but why is that? Well, because we want to have more hands and hearts to do service. So going along with what David was saying, we raise this money so that we can do good things in the world. No one joins a club to do nothing. They join to do something. And people join Rotary for different reasons, but the all-member survey that we do every year says they stay, most of them, because they want to do service projects. This is dedication of 250 homes recently in the Philippines that were built by Rotarians so that they can have somewhere to live. So we want to grow so we can have more hearts and hands to do the service, but how do we do it? There's exactly 3 ways, and only 3 ways we can grow Rotary. First, we have to attract new members into our current clubs. We have to ask people to join. Just by show of hands, how many of you have actually joined membership because somebody asked you to join? Yeah, see, most of us. And the surveys that we've done have showed about 90% of people were asked to join Rotary. So that's how we do it. We have to ask people to join. We attract them into our current club. Then when we get them, what do we have to do? We have to retain them. And the way we do that is to engage our members. There's lots of different ways to engage, but the primary way to engage our members is to put them on committees, have them do service projects, either local or international, engage them with socials and with camaraderie. And the last way to grow is to form new clubs. So we bring new members in, we engage them to keep them, and then we form new clubs. But wrapped around all of these 3 ways of growing Rotary is what we call the club experience or the club culture. When we ask people why they leave Rotary when they left, they usually say because they felt like they didn't fit in. They didn't feel like they belonged. They didn't have a good club experience. Now, how do you know if you have a good club experience? Well, if your club is doing good things, if it's growing, if it's raising money, if it's doing service projects, having great socials, you know it has a good culture. And if people have a good culture, they're going to enjoy it, they're going to stay, and they're going to bring in more people. If you had a bad culture, you can usually tell that because people are leaving. They're not coming to meetings, they're not doing service projects. So if we don't have a good club culture, people leave. So to get them to stay, what we usually do is we do a club survey and we ask them, do you like where we meet? Do you like how we meet, either in person or online, or maybe hybrid meeting? Do you like our socials? Do you like our service projects? And when we listen to them and we actually do the things that the survey tells us they want, then the culture can improve. Now, how often should we do that? About once a year. Why? Because people are constantly coming in your club and people are constantly leaving the club. So the culture changes. So over a year, it could be a different culture a year from now than it is now. But if we have a good club experience and continue to improve it, it makes it easier to attract members because people on the outside are going to see what you're doing. They're going to see you having fun at your socials. They're going to see you making an impact in the world through your service projects. It also helps you engage your members. If you have a good culture, they're going to want to come. They're going to have a good time when they're there, and they're going to want to have more Rotary and see more of their friends in Rotary. And of course, if your club wants to form a satellite club or another club or a full-out new club, having that club experience in a positive way helps you do all those areas of growth. So when we look at it, there's certain areas where I think we can make a big difference in Rotary and really grow our clubs and grow our districts. And I've kind of alluded to some of them already. When it comes to the attraction, again, I broke it down into the attraction, the engagement, and the forming new clubs. So females only represent 26% of our membership right now, yet demographically, in most of our communities, they represent 50% of our communities. So I think that's a big area. If we could make our clubs attractive to females, have them join the club, they'll feel comfortable because there's other people like them in the club. I think we can really grow that way. And right now, only 10% of the membership leads that come in join a club. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. There's people who reach out to Rotary International and say, hey, I'd like to join a Rotary club. Can you tell me about a club near you? So we're going to talk about that. That's one of the things that I'm going to discuss in more detail later. Again, the engagement, if we engage our members as soon as they get in, if you see a new member and they stop coming to meetings right away, ask them to join a committee, ask them to join a service project, make sure that they have friends and they're sitting with someone during their breakfast or lunch if you have a fixed cost meal as part of your club format. And starting new clubs. This is pretty interesting because when we look at the world in rough numbers, the Northern Hemisphere is declining in membership, and the Southern Hemisphere, except for New Zealand, Australia, and those islands around there, Zone 8, they are actually growing in membership. So Northern Hemisphere's not growing, Southern Hemisphere's growing. Now, if you look at where the new clubs are being formed, the new clubs are being formed in the Southern Hemisphere, and the Northern Hemisphere is not forming many clubs. We had less than 150 clubs form in all of North America last year, which isn't a lot compared to the Southern Hemisphere. But it makes sense. If you're in an area of the world and you're starting clubs and you're starting more clubs and you're losing, you're going to grow. If you're losing clubs and you're not forming new clubs, then you're not going to grow. So back in 1996, the average club size was about 60. Today, it's 32. But, we've been about the same number, a little bit less. So why is that? It's because we're forming new clubs. So what we found out is that some of the traditional legacy clubs, and I love our traditional legacy clubs. I'm in one. We meet every Tuesday morning at a country club. I love it. I would never leave, but that doesn't work for everybody. So if you form a new club, you could reach out to those potential people of action in your community, bring them into a new club where they say what works for their schedule. They say what time they want to meet, where they want to meet, all those kind of things. Because maybe they just don't want to go to a traditional club. Maybe they can't take work off of work at 7:30 in the morning, or maybe they have to take their child to the school bus. Who knows? But maybe they want to meet at night, and maybe they don't want to have a meal. They just want to get together and work on a service project. So these new clubs open up new doors for potential new members. So when we go to the attraction, the biggest thing that's happening, and this is underway right now, Rotary International is contracted with Salesforce, a computer company, to come up with a new membership leads program. Right now, Rotary International has a membership leads program that when someone contacts Rotary, it goes to a district, the district where the person is physically located, and a district representative is supposed to go through those leads and assign them to clubs. But what we found out is very few leads are actually being translated into membership. So people call up, but there's only a 10.6 conversion rate from someone calling in to actually joining the club. So Rotary International did 4 pilot projects with the various districts and found out that sometimes the district person, the district membership chair, was taking all those leads and assigning it to his or her club instead of multiple clubs. Other people who were in charge of this for the district didn't do anything with the leads. So Rotary International has decided that the best thing to do is to have a new program that actually goes straight to 3 clubs that a potential person interested in Rotary would likely to join. So we think that 10.6% conversion rate is going to go really high up. And that should it's almost ready now, but Rotary International doesn't want to roll it out during the next couple of months where we have a lot of holidays because they might not have the staff support that's needed for it. So look in January to have this new membership leads program. Now, when it comes to engagement, member attrition is a big deal. Remember how I said that we have somewhere around 170,000 people join every year, but then we have a whole lot of people leave, so we have a net loss of about 20,000 a year. And the sad thing is, and the scary part to me is, we lose, like I said, 10% within the first year that they join, and then we lose 50% within the first 3 years. So if we can get them to come into our clubs and stay in our clubs for the first 3 years, we would have good, steady membership growth. We'd have less attrition. Now, why do I feel this is an opportunity? Well, a lot of the new clubs that we are starting aren't legacy clubs and aren't traditional clubs. They're e-clubs where they meet online, like some of us are meeting today. I know some of you are there in person, but some of us are online. And also, a lot of the new clubs are cause-based clubs, which means the club is based around a single cause. Their meetings are around their cause. Their speakers are around that cause. So there's a lot of individuals who would like to serve, but they want to have great impact in one area. Let's say the environment, or ending human trafficking, or serving our veterans. You can have a cause-based club around just that area. Of course, they do the 5 areas of service. If you have a club to serve veterans, they still do Toys for Tots. They still write cards for active military. They still do all those areas of service. But they focus in an area where they want to serve and want to have the greatest impact. So in the traditional clubs, people usually live or work within a 10-mile radius of that club. But in these new cause-based clubs, like the Veterans Club that we started a few years back, people would drive an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to that club for a service project or a meeting, because that cause acts like a magnet that pulls these individuals in. And while they're interested in doing that cause, they get to learn more about Rotary. Because when you start a club, especially a cause-based club, you're focused on serving that cause. But when the veterans found out Rotary is for peace, that was one of their big deals. Rotary is for camaraderie. Rotary is for service. They start becoming Rotarians. They find out what we're doing with polio, or that we started the UN, and they become Rotarians. But having that cause keeps them in there long enough so they can find that out. Rotary has another new thing coming out calling the New Member Engagement Campaign, where Rotary International will directly send to new members a series of emails every few weeks where they talk about what Rotary is about. Because so many times we invite somebody to our club and we tell them about our club, but we don't tell them that there's fellowships and we don't tell them that there's action groups and that you can go watch our parliamentary procedure called our council of legislation. You can go to International Assembly, or you could ride the float in the Rose Bowl Parade, and all those things we can do because we usually just tell them about our club. And if they have a conflict because that culture is not going right, they might leave Rotary. But it's interesting because they're really not leaving Rotary International. They're leaving a club that they didn't fit into. So if we let them know there's other clubs and other ways to serve, I mean, you could start a wine fellowship. We already have a wine fellowship. We can get a chapter of our wine fellowship. There's all kinds of different things you can do. And this is an example of one of the letters that they will receive, a new member will receive from Rotary International. And so the club president doesn't have to take the time to do this. Rotary will be doing it for them. And of course, if you want to go to our learning center, they have all kinds of courses. If you were inspired by David today when he was talking about the foundation, you can go there and learn about the foundation. You can learn about membership. You could learn about how to do a new member orientation to attract new members and engage them once they join. And if you want to do an assessment like we talked about, it's not hard to do. And if you have a small club, you could just ask a few questions. Do you like where we meet, how we meet, our socials, our service projects? But if you want something more sophisticated, there are 7 types of assessment tools or surveys on Rotary's website, and you can cut and paste them in a survey monkey and modify them as you like. So there's all kinds of help there. And when it comes to forming new clubs, there's also help there. You know, your club doesn't have to be on its own if it's starting a new club. It can get help from the district. We have Lloyd Campbell on here, who's an assistant Rotary coordinator, and he helps out 3 districts in our zone grow. And we're going to have Lloyd on in a minute to talk a little bit about a subject that also helps us grow Rotary. So forming new clubs is not hard to do. There's lots of people to help you. Some areas of the world have innovative club advocates who can help you. Your Rotary coordinator can help you. Your director can help you. So just to review the major opportunities that I see attending the Rotary International Membership Growth Committee meetings. One is attract people through those new leads. You know, we have to ask our friends, but we also have to make sure when the new leads start coming straight to your club in January, we have to reach out to those people and see if they're a fit for your club. We have to engage the people that we have. And we have to engage them early when they first start. The most important thing is to engage them. You think about it, these people, these are not just low-hanging fruit. This is fruit on the ground. We have people calling Rotary International saying they want to join a club. We should reach out to them. We should help them. We have others who have joined our club. We should make sure we don't lose them by making sure they're engaged, they know people, and they're doing projects alongside of us. And then forming new clubs. It's amazing that 20% of our districts haven't chartered a club in over 5 years. And when you charter your first club, sometimes there's a little resistance, but starting a club is not hard from the standpoint that if you're a district, all you have to do is start an e-club and call the people who have left over the last few years of Rotary, and you would easily get 20 to 30 people to start a new club. And so if someone's leaving a club because they have to move away or something, you could offer them a membership in an e-club, which is usually less expensive because they don't have to pay for meals. So it's just something to think about. So the initiatives that are being pushed by Rotary International, we talked about the club experience. We need to make sure we have a good club experience. The engagement scoring, we're going to be asking people through surveys if they like what they're doing. We're thinking about other groups that we could partner with, other organizations, and make them see if they want to become members in Rotary. We're talking about forming new clubs, of course, reaching out to various external groups to see if they want to be involved as a participant or members of Rotary. We're going to be working on a strategy for Rotaract that'll make them truly members as opposed to just another program of ours. The LEADS program is going to come active in January, so look for that. And we're going to talk about nurturing campaigns once we get people in. So now my favorite part of any talk is to ask you the questions that you have. So if you have any questions, just shout them out, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. And then we're going to talk to Lloyd about DEI.
I have a quick question. I
have a question.
Yes.
Was,
Lloyd, I think they have a question in the room. We just can't hear it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Real quick, I know a few years ago there was a focus somewhat on Rotary alumni, and that seems to have died out. Is there any movement on that front?
Rotary International right now doesn't have a dedicated employee who's working on alumni. However, the Rotary International Membership Growth Committee is about to begin focusing out there. There's been a lot of discussion. You think about it, alumni are such a great group to ask if they want to join Rotary because they already know about Rotary. And alumni could be anyone it could be a Peace Fellow or a Global Scholar. It could be a youth exchange student who's now an adult. It could be a host family who was never a Rotarian, but they were a host family. All those individuals have been affected by, and in many cases, their lives have been changed in a positive way by Rotary. We should reach out to them. And I think Rotary International, you'll see, you're right, there hasn't been a big push on that. Since really 2020. But I think you'll see in the future a lot bigger push towards alumni. That's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
No, I think for me it's more of a comment. This is Ben and Sheila. It's I think the survey is a great tool that can be used. The key to it is follow-up, which I think our club could do a little bit better on that follow-up on what the review that you received as what can get members engaged in your program. So just a comment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If we take a survey and we don't act on that survey, we don't get the buy-in. But if we listen to them and there's something that makes sense and the majority of the people want it, we actually make that change, we're going to have that buy-in. You know, I remember Lloyd and I were once at North Central Pets, and the last exercise of the day is we went around to all the president-elects and we asked them to make one change. If they were going to make one change, what would it be? And we had some grand ideas. We had some small ideas. And we had one man named Troy. I always call him Troy the pie guy because his change in his years, he was going to have pie for dessert because he didn't like the desserts. So I ran into Troy a few years later and I asked him, did he get his pie? And he did. But it was interesting because his answer was that there was a significant change in his club over the years because of that one change. When they changed the dessert to pie, a lot of people liked it. But then people started offering other changes, and they actually changed from a culture that was resistant to change, that one to one that was really looking for innovation. And now they're the second largest club in that district. So you're right. It doesn't help to do a survey unless we listen to them and do what they ask us to do, and then they'll be buying and it'll help. So thank you very much for bringing up that point.
Welcome.
Tom, before we move on to Lloyd, I would just like to point out a little pat on the back for our club. I know you said the average number of women in the club is 26%. We are, I guess, about 52, 53%. We have more women than men.
That's fantastic. And, you know, that is a great transition to what Lloyd's going to be talking about. Because if you think about it, when we have diversity, we have parity in gender, we represent our communities, we're going to be so much stronger as clubs, because when we deal with the problem, we're going to have a diverse set of solutions. When we started the Veterans Club, the president and the vice president of the club were paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne, and they were determined to grow the club and be the largest club by the end of the year. And then we had two women who were head of membership. One was named Kathy Army and one was named Kathy Navy, because one had been in the Army and one was the Navy. And their approach was, well, what we need to do is we need to interview everyone and make sure they're going to fit with our club. We don't want to have any kind of issues later on because someone's not a good fit. So taking those two diverse opinions from four different people ended up being the right answer. We had to be somewhat assertive in trying to bring new members, but we had to make sure they were a fit. So the more diversity we have in a club, the stronger we're going to be, because we're going to have much better solutions to approach our problems with. So, Lloyd, can you tell us why diversity in a club is important?
Thank you, Tom. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for a couple of reasons. First, for inviting me here, because you know that every time we talk, I'm always talking about diversity and how important it is. But when we just take the time to look at what Paul Harris said about, hey, how do we make Rotary the best organization in the world? He simply said it's important that we diversify, that we are a diversity organization. And when you look at our code of policy, one of the things that really sticks out, and this is section 4.010-1, it talks about how important diversity is for our membership and for our organization. It says, if you don't mind me reading this, that we should endeavor to reflect their community with regards to professional and business classification. That's number one. Gender. Number two, age, religion, and ethnicity. It's interesting when you talk about religion and ethnicity, we don't really follow those get information back about that. But it highlights, even in our code of policy, how important diversity is. Now, when we look at diversity, we sort of look at it in two ways. One, with new clubs, and I always say that's new clubs is sort of like, for me, low-hanging fruit, because as you know, when we start new clubs, diversity just seems to happen. And I'll talk about that later. But then we have these established clubs. Now, that might be an area where we might have some concerns. And you know, I live in a community where my family is the only Black family in the community. So when we talked to the Rotary Club about being diverse, one of the first things they said was, we're already diverse. And I said, let's look at that, because at the time we only had 3 females in the organization, and I was the youngest person. So diversity took on a different meaning for them. So when we look at diversity, and also think about the action plan too, because I'm going to talk a little bit about the action plan. It's important that we compare our classification in those clubs with the community and see if we actually meet that at all, or do we come close to that? And one of the things that you will notice is that once those clubs come pretty close to the classifications that's in their community, you'll start seeing things happen as far as diversity is concerned. One would be gender. You'll notice that there will be attracting and having more women in an organization. And also you're going to have age, and especially if you look for professionals who are not retired, they'll be under 65 years old, and religion and ethnicity. Like I said earlier, we don't track that, but when you walk into a club, you can see if that's a major issue there. So, you know, I get excited about that. What questions do you have about diversity that I can focus on? Like, for instance, I'm about to ask the question myself, how important new clubs are. One of the things that we did in our district, and I believe if I'm not mistaken, you were the district governor at the time. We started new clubs. Our district was in the high 20% as far as gender is concerned, as far as male-female relationship. And we started 3 new clubs that I can think of where the gender was mostly 50 to 70% female. And with a 12-month period of time, we moved from the high 20% to the middle 30% in female. So new clubs, just simply following a interest that they might have, reflect what the community wanted, and it help diversify our district. So I think new clubs is one of the keys that we can talk about when we look at diversity. Another point, you know how I love to talk, so cut me off if I talk too much, is that if we're going to continue to grow and be successful, we have to be diverse. So that's one of the keys. And it's difficult for me to talk about diversity without going over what you've already talked about. You highlighted the best practices in membership. And if we just follow those things, we wouldn't have any problems as far as membership is concerned. Best practices is the key. And I was sitting here taking notes and saying, he's stealing my stick here. He's covering the things that we should be doing as an organization. So thank you very much for giving me the time to talk a little bit about diversity and how important it is. Any questions you have about diversity? I have a zillion answers as far as my experience with diversity in Rotary.
Well, I do have a question, and it's kind of a concern. And I know, we've spoken about it at times in clubs here. When you want to increase the diversity of your club and you're reaching out to specific communities, how do you invite people to join the club without them feeling like you're inviting them because they will increase our diversity, like our token this or our token that? How do we make sure that they don't feel that way, that we want them as members because they're good people, not necessarily because they're LGBTQ or because they're Muslim or because they're this or that? How do we make sure we make them welcome because of they are a good person, not their diversity?
I couldn't hear, Tom. And you're muted. Tom, you're muted.
She wants to know, how do we invite individuals who may be an underrepresented class without making them feel like they're tokens?
There are a couple ways of doing that. One is just to invite one person. One of the tools that we have is a satellite club where we can get 6 individuals that can be part of the club. And the same with young people, with people of color and different sex. Just bring them on as a group and they won't feel like a token. And also, too, make sure you follow the Rotary standards, too. So by following the Rotary standards, bringing on a group of folks at once, there's no reason to feel like a token. The other thing, the third thing, too, is the club experience. It's important that your members welcome them with open arms and be true Rotarians and be friendly, open, and wouldn't have any problems.
I think just to add, our challenge we have really, because we have an aging membership population. So it's being active with a Rotary Club and going out there and just do it. Because otherwise, some of us are going to fall off. So that's a challenge to our team that's here in terms of people who can take over from us. The people have been all over the place, a generation.
Absolutely, Benjamin. Rotaract is a very important tool that we can use to lower the average age of Rotarians. And Rotaract is actually, basically a Rotary Club now. It's treated as a Rotary Club. So it's important that we attract young members. And think about it. Your first exposure to Rotary is going to, and if it's a positive one, it's going to be a life-changing experience. So if you can start an Interact Club in elementary school and high school, then what you have is that experience that they're going to have with Rotary is going to be positive. Also, the student exchange program is another one where they can have a positive experience with Rotary. And also, any activities that you're doing with the school system will give some exposure to Rotary, and they're going to wonder why. We have something we call Camp Enterprise, where we take high school students and for over the weekend, introduce them to business practices. So those are the small steps that you can take to introduce people to Rotary, and especially Rotaract, and sponsor a Rotaract Club. And you'll have people to walk in your footsteps as you go as a Rotarian.
Lloyd, tell them what we saw yesterday at Eden Prairie Morning Club.
Oh, yes. We had interns. The Eden Prairie Rotary Club actually get high school students to be interns, and they come to the meeting and actually be involved in Rotary. They get exposure to rubbing shoulders with business executives in the community and being mentored by some Rotarians. So that is also another key that we can you can definitely use.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Thank you so much for that valuable presentation. We so appreciate it. And we do have a lot of work to do, but we're encouraged. And we may be a small club, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that.
And we're always available. So if you need any help or assistance, please call Tom.
That's a good one. Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for finding time.
Okay, thank you.